Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not exaggerating at all in the slightest when I say this is probably one of, if not the single most important Warzone video that I have ever made on this channel. Yesterday, I was fortunate enough to be invited to a special meeting with a handful of developers at Raven and at Call of Duty and Infinity Ward to talk about some of the changes coming in Season 2 of Warzone. So today, you're getting the inside scoop, if you will, some early previews of some of the major changes coming to Warzone, also some acknowledgement of some other things happening in Warzone in the background. The future of Warzone, which is particularly exciting. They responded to FOV and gave us some sort of answers and responses to that. Same deal with Xbox and the whole 120 hertz issue. And they also addressed the state of the game as it is right now. So quite a bit to go over today as we cover it all. If you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you're new here or if you have not already subscribed, every day I got you covered with all things going on in COD, news, updates, loadouts, tips. You'll find it all right here. So feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. So first things first, I do want to give a huge shout out and a huge thank you to my friends over at Activision, because while I have been invited to a handful of things previously and gotten to, see some seasonal stuff early, see a couple of maps early, whatever the case may be, this particular event that we had was probably one of the coolest and most special ones that they've held because of all the information and sort of the personable conversations that we got to have with these devs about Warzone and the changes that we want to see, the changes that the community wants to see. There was a lot of really solid discussions held in this little briefing that we took part in. So big shout out and thank you so much for the invite. And obviously it allows me to bring this information to you guys as well, which is super cool. So I want to start off first with what some of the devs said about Warzone since it, went to the whole Caldera and Pacific update, because this to me was such a huge standout point. And there were a couple of different devs that talked, and every single one of them made it a priority to say, hey, we realize the game is not in a great state. We messed up in certain cases and we broke things. Things got messed up, and that's not something they want to have happen. They were not super happy with how Warzone Pacific started off. They basically said that they don't want games to feel the same within Warzone, aka they don't want the Modern Warfare era to feel exactly like the Cold War era and that to feel exactly like the Vanguard era. They want to have distinctions, but some of these changes mess things up, and they like wholeheartedly said, hey, yeah, that's on us. We got to do better. They made a specific note about communication with the community, and this whole briefing in and of itself is a huge step forward where we got to really convey our feedback, obviously your guys' feedback to them, and they had responses and back and forth engaging conversations. So they made specific notes that community inclusion and conversations need to, improve, and they need to do better with communicating in general. They also made very specific notes that the game is not in a great state right now, but they think it's going to drastically improve, and they want it to drastically improve. They've looked at some very specific data that they actually showed us in this relating to crashes, to player sentiment, all sorts of really cool stuff that obviously we as the public would not have access to. They're looking at a ton of stuff and really trying to figure out, okay, this did not work. Players clearly were not happy with that. This is unplayable for 80% of the players on right now. We got to fix this stuff. So yeah, season 1 might have had some cool stuff, but it also messed up way too much. So the whole season 2 delay in and of itself was to make sure quality of life in Warzone was priority number 1. And when I go through this list of quality of life updates, good grief, we have so many huge changes. So I got my list here. We're gonna run down them like no tomorrow. But before we do that, I do want to quickly focus on just the Trello board, showing that off here, because they made a pretty big emphasis on the fact that a lot of these main issues, these priority issues on the Trello board, are getting fixed with Season 2, or should be getting fixed with Season 2. Things including the console performance issues on PlayStation and Xbox, the buy station freezes, invisible skins, cross-platform voice chat, the demon guns and different rendering issues that should also be fixed, plunder XP not stacking correctly, stuff like that. Season 2 should include some fixes for. First things first, increased mantle heights and collision fixes. So running into other players and running into certain things on the map is going to be adjusted and made smoother so it's not interrupting gameplay. Also, the mantle heights, it seems like there's a lot of doors, there's a lot of windows that we can't jump into for some reason. They're fixing that as well, making gameplay a little bit more seamless and smooth there. Change that they actually announced in the blog post from last week that they reiterated here. Gas mask animations are no longer going to interrupt you if you're aiming down sights. They don't interrupt you when you're reloading or when you're plating now, but they were still interrupting you when you were ADSing, which makes gunfights ridiculously unenjoyable, right? So that's getting fixed, and that's a big quality of life improvement as well. This is one that I absolutely love, and I think everyone was kind of freaking out when they first announced this. They are adjusting how the plates work. As we know, you could have one full plate and then 88% of another plate on for plate 2, and if you go to plate up, you're not going to get a full plate into plate 3. You're going to plate up that remaining 12%. So basically, you just use an entire armor plate for 12%. That is no longer going to be a thing. Instead, it's going to fill a full plate first and then fill out the remaining 12% there if you needed that, which is a huge update. Basically, there's never going to be just filling up your bar. It's always going to be, if you're putting on a plate, you are going to be filling up at least one full plate's worth of armor. They also are going to be changing handling on vehicles, specifically some of the Vanguard vehicles where the handling just feels very awkward and not very seamless or smooth. They are going to be looking into that, making vehicles a little bit easier to control and maintain. They're also going to be adjusting the parachute mechanics and basically making it so that you have more control of when you cut and pull your chute, which is very, very convenient. It's something that I've actually brought up on the channel in the past. I don't know if that's maybe the reason that they started looking into it, but nonetheless, I'm glad that they are adjusting the parachute mechanics in general. They are completely removing dead silence and stuns from Vanguard Royale. I had to tease you a little bit, right? Just Vanguard Royale is seeing no more dead silence and no more stun grenades in gameplay. In Core BR and Rebirth, dead silence and stuns will still be available to put on your loadouts to find in game, but it's a good testing grounds, I think, to see, hey, maybe we don't need dead silence in this game where footsteps are kind of hard to hear as is. I definitely think that's a positive change too. Another big change that keyboard and mouse players are especially going to like, and honestly anyone who has ever died to it, if you're stunned, your aim assist is no longer going to be able to basically save you out of that stun. If you're unfamiliar, essentially if you get hit with a stun and you're on controller, your aim assist can still keep you on target and on a player pretty strong through that gunfight. And even if you're full stunned, you have a good chance to win that. They're drastically nerfing the aim assist when you're stunned, so then that's not the case, and stunning is actually going to give that other player who stunned you an advantage. So again, another very positive change there. They are actually going to be nerfing the gas canisters around the map and then also the fighter planes, so those will be a little bit less dominant in game. Again, positive changes that I feel like are going to really improve the quality of life. Honestly, I feel like the entire list of changes here is nothing but, 2 thumbs up from me. I haven't seen any changes I'm like, well, maybe I'm not really a huge fan of that. It all seems like it is resonating from the community's concerns with certain aspects of gameplay. They're going to be buffing the anti-air guns that are around the map. I'm not going to lie, I feel like I've maybe been in them once to see what it was like. I never used them, so that's not really a huge gameplay change, but they are buffing those to make them a bit more effective. They're also adjusting the end zone circle, so it's less likely to end in and around peak, which to me is just another good update to have, because let's face it, fighting on those hills around peak is a nightmare. It's so annoying because the verticality, the wide open spaces, it's just not a good time. So that is also being adjusted. Then they also previewed a bit of the Season 2 Reloaded updates as well. Some changes that are going to be coming a bit later on into the season. You're going to be able to control your resurrect state when you're being revived, meaning if you are getting revived and you want to stay prone when you get up so you can plate up, you're going to be able to make sure you stay prone. Or if you want to crouch so you can get right back into a fight, or you want to get behind a piece of cover, you can choose to be crouched. That's a huge quality of life improvement that I didn't see coming, but it's something that I feel like is really going to improve gameplay. Not being forced to always be crouched if you get revived, that's huge. You're going to be able to drop gas masks in the future, so you can, give those to your teammates if you need, make some better plays with those. And then also, you're going to be able to pick up armor from other armor satchels on the ground. So if you had a satchel, but hey, you used all 8 plates because you just got in a fight, but you couldn't loot them because you had to rotate or whatever the case may be, and you don't have plates now, and you stumble across another armor satchel, it always sucks because you're like, man, I have no plates, but I can't pick up this satchel because I already have one. You'll be able to take the plates from that armor satchel on the ground and put them into your armor satchel. So that's a really cool update as well. Again, that'll be coming later on into the season. Now we get to the very interesting stuff. Probably some of the most highly requested features and things in Warzone. We, of course, had to ask the devs about them. FOV slider for console. This was asked about quite a bit, and the devs addressed this in a way that they really haven't done before, in details that they really haven't shared before. All the devs that we talked to heavily advocated wanting to have FOV on console. They all want to see it happen because it brings that level of fairness to all platforms, to all kinds of players. However, at the moment, they do not have confidence that they could implement an FOV slider on console and still have good frame rates and maintain good frame rates on old gen consoles, on the Xbox One and on the PlayStation 4. They said, well, I know people will say, why don't you put it on new gen or current gen only? And the reason that they were refraining from that they gave us is that because they don't want to increase the skill gap even more and give old gen players even more of a barrier against other players on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and PC. If all of them had FOV slider, that raises the skill gap for all of them, and then the vast majority of the player base, which still sits on old gen consoles, would be at a distinct disadvantage. So they're not confident in the performance on old gen consoles, and because that's such a large chunk of the player base, giving it to everyone else but them would really hurt, they think, general gameplay because it furthers the skill gap, and that's not what they're aiming for there. So that was the reasons that we got as to why there's no FOV slider in the game right now. I'm sure it's not the information that you wanted to hear, but it is more of an address and it's more of a actual answer than we've ever gotten from them. So I really like the fact that they went ahead and actually addressed it, rather than in the past they say, oh, we're aware of the community's want for it. They went all out and said, yeah, it sucks that we can't put it in, but we just don't have confidence in the product at the end of the day, because they want to focus the most on having a smooth performance for everybody there. They also talked on Xbox not having 120 hertz or 120 frames available for obviously current gen consoles. And this was especially interesting because ever since it broke with the Caldera update, everyone's been nagging Raven, hey, fix 120 hertz on console, on Xbox. You know, why can't I use my new gen console with new gen features? Surprisingly enough, it's not just Raven's fault here. The tech on Microsoft's end doesn't support 120 hertz for Caldera's engine base. Basically, the tech that Caldera is built on, it's not fully compatible, I guess you could say. They described it in way more dev terms and tech terms that went way over my head, because I'm not that smart, but it actually doesn't. It's more so Microsoft stuff not being up to speed with Raven's stuff and Caldera's stuff, and them just not being cross compatible. So both sides, they said, have to, fix things. Xbox and Microsoft have to work on doing some stuff and getting their back end and their tech up to speed, and then Raven's gonna have to adjust their stuff once that happens so that Xbox can have 120 hertz. But just a heads up, it's not just Warzone being broken with that. It's actually Xbox as a console and Microsoft with their back end stuff. So very interesting answer there. Another thing that was brought up is, why can't we move forward with certain technical aspects of the game? And their plain answer here was, the vast majority of the player base is on old consoles, on Xbox One and on PlayStation 4. And because of the shortages with all the new consoles, it is not worth it. It's not a smart venture to drop old consoles and strictly focus on current gen, as much as they want to. And they all seem very excited to get to work on current gen tech and on this new stuff. There's just too many players that they'd be leaving behind and alienating if they cut out old gen consoles. So unfortunately, Xbox One and PlayStation 4 are kind of holding us all back here. We just need more current gen consoles out there so that everyone can start picking them up. There were also a lot of discussions about aim assist. There were a lot of keyboard and mouse players from the comp community asking about nerf and aim assist, adjusting aim assist. And the devs said that it's something that they are looking into in the future to potentially alter how it works. I don't think there's any deniers out there that aim assist in certain fights is incredibly broken. I don't think it's broken through and through. Players on controller definitely need it, especially those on 80 FOV, 60 FPS on some of those older consoles, but it is going to be looked into, they said, so we could see some interesting things there. They also touched a bit on the future of Warzone, saying that there are very big changes coming to Warzone in the future that are bigger than just the meta being changed, bigger than just the movement maybe being adjusted. Very, very game-changing, game-altering things are headed to Warzone. They did not get into specifics though, which I won't lie, it's a bit unfortunate. I would have loved to know, but obviously we're gonna find that out in due time, because we also found out a lot about what's gonna be happening at the end of this year with Call of Duty, with Warzone, with the new Call of Duty, which I'm gonna have a full separate video on. So if you're watching this video, that one should be up right around the same time that this one is going up. Feel free to check out that one, because there's other pretty spicy information, too much so that takes away from season 2, so I wanted to split them up. But with all that being said, that is all the exclusive information you now know about season 2 before everyone else. You love to see it, you love to hear it. I was very impressed when this briefing was all said and done with the information that we learned, the way that these devs explain things and actively engaged in our questions and our concerns. It leaves me very, very hopeful for the future of Warzone. I definitely think we hit a rough patch there, but it does seem like we're on our way out of that, and we are, you know, climbing up the mountain right now, because things, I think, are only going to get bigger and better as time goes on. With that being said, that is going to wrap things up for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you're new here or if you have not already subscribed, every day I got you covered with all things going on in COD. So feel free to click that sub button, tap that bell icon. That way you'll always know whenever I post a new video. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.